So welcome to the Chat Lounge. I'm Tuyen. Joining our discussion on the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative, also known as the BRI, are Makhdoom Babar, President and Editor-in-Chief of Pakistan Daily Mail; Thomas Pauken II, Beijing-based geopolitical consultant and media commentator on Asia-Pacific issues; and Professor Dai Yonghong, Dean of College of International Studies and Institute of Area and International Communication, Shenzhen University. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, from being questioned, slandered, to being imitated, the Belt and Road Initiative has fared through a tremendous or spectacular journey since its birth a decade ago. So how would you define the initiative and summarize its past 10 years in simple words? Maybe we start with Tom,
Sure.
Who's supposed to be a, outsider.
Sure.
Would you define
Sure.
yourself as an outsider or bystander?
I've been an outsider everywhere I go, including in my home country, so I'm accustomed to it. The Belt and Road Initiative, basically, if you really think about it, is sort of a massive infrastructure project for the world, with China helping to finance it and also provide loans. Now, also something very important to remember is, although the BRI is a grand initiative to help with the major infrastructure projects all over the world, this is not charity. This is almost like basically a business deal. So when you're doing the major infrastructure, it's going to make it's going to be very expensive. It's going to cost a lot of investments. It's going to take a lot of loans. And the countries that are working on it are going to have to find ways to either pay back or make it profitable for the investors. So of course, the West is complaining about China because they're leading it. But in reality, if you do not develop these type of major infrastructure with bridges, railroads, airports, a lot of these countries will not be able to succeed or develop their countries into more progress. So obviously what's going on is you're having a battle between the West and China. And I've dealt with politics for a long time, and it's very simple. You have A team, you have B team. If you're on the A team, you don't like the B team. And if you're on B team, you don't like the A team. So no matter what B does, A will always criticize and complain. No matter what B does and they see A, they will always complain about A. So the simple case is the A team, as the West, is looking at China and just saying, oh, BRI is terrible because it's causing all this debt. Well, obviously, it's just a simple case of politics. They're finding a way to criticize China because they see China as a rival.
Then, in simple words, how would you call it? Or it's
I would just say a major infrastructure. It's building big time infrastructure all over the world for those participating countries.
Well, then let's turn to Mr. Makhdoom, very important player in this initiative, from a very important participant country, I should say, from this initiative. How would you define this project in simple words?
Well, in my opinion, I have been following very closely for 10 years this, it was first OBOR, One Belt, One Road, and then it became Belt and Road Initiative and different name change. 21st Century Maritime Silk Road was also one of it. It has 6 economic corridors, and most vibrant so far is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. What I have been saying in these years, these 10 years, as Mr. Thomas said, infrastructure development and all that, with a lot of criticism by the Western media. This is not, in my opinion, something between China and West. This is something between Asia and West. President Xi Jinping once said that this century will be the century of Asia. He was referring to the development, infrastructure and economical development coming through BRI. And that took me to think that why my media colleagues from West are so much opposing or criticizing BRI most of the time, because they cannot take it easily that it should, all the development from Europe or America or West should be focusing on Asia for the future.
What they're afraid of?
They are afraid of Asian countries, which were mostly comprising the third world countries. They will become the first world countries, and they think they will become the third world countries if this development. But this is baseless. This is basically a project of development for everybody, for every country that needs, that like to get repairing from this initiative, not focus. In the beginning, they thought that China is making some sort of block, economical block, and bringing countries. The concept of BRI was not very clear to most of the politicians and most of the media people, even most of the businessmen. But we see the moment they started realizing that this is a real development project, more and more countries have started joining BRI with a very fast pace. And it started with, I think, 42, 44 countries. But during the last few years, many, more than 150
right.
countries have joined it. Mostly, I can see that the shift in joining BRI came after Chinese leadership handled the COVID crisis very effectively and emerged as a real force to mobilize the global economy. During and after COVID, many countries realized that we should not be afraid of China or not be jealous of China, but instead we should join. Just a few countries, couple of countries, maybe 3, 4, they have not admitted it. But also, I think they think on the same way. So many Western players that were not very friendly towards BRI before COVID, now I can see in last year, many of them, whether it is from Europe or Africa or wherever, they have shown their complete confidence in it. And because of the economic policies and tactics and the way China helped the BRI members and the way BRI members got benefited from being member of BRI after COVID or during COVID, that has encouraged many people, and that have made them realize that this is not a political or economical block for them.
Right, so you would call it a project of development.
Yeah, he believes it's infrastructure. I think it's overall development, and these 10 years are full of challenges and conspiracies.
Indeed, we'll dive into more challenges later on in the show. Mr. Makhdoom defines it as basically as a project of development, and Tom would call it basically a infrastructure project. Is that accurate? All right.
Yeah.
Then, Professor Dai, how would you define it as someone who's from the initiator of this project?
Okay, the Belt and Road Initiative was a Chinese proposal, and it has gradually become an international consensus and also global actions. So far, there are about 152 countries and international organizations chosen to participate in this international public goods. So if you ask me to define the BRI initiative, I would like to say it's an initiative for common prosperity and common development. Because Chinese BRI upholds the principle of peace and cooperation, openness and inclusiveness, and mutual learning and mutual benefits. Actually, these 16 keywords are the summarizes of the Chinese traditional culture and philosophy, which was summarized by Chinese President Xi Jinping during the first BRI International Cooperation Forum. That is called BRI or Silk Road Spirit. So far, we have made enormous achievements for the past 10 years. So not from the conceptual ideas, but also for programmatic cooperation. We can see many BRI projects has been successfully implemented, not only in Asia, but also in African continent. So we can cite good examples of this CPEC and this China-Laos Railway, and also the high-speed train from Jakarta to Bandar, and also the Mombasa to Nairobi. And also CPEC for Pakistan. We have a Pakistan speaker here, and you are experiencing these fruitful cooperation results in the past 10 years.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is a very, I should say, signature project of this initiative, right?
Yeah, our Chinese friends who are engaged with this, they call it the flagship project, and one of the most vibrant economic corridors out of the 6. And it has already started. In Pakistan, there were some misconceptions. There were some political narratives being attached to this CPEC in the beginning. But now, even those who were critical of certain projects or overall CPEC, now they have also realized that this is a prosperity and development-oriented mega initiative. So now, and then they said like more than 200,000 jobs it has created for youngsters in Pakistan. Only one project on the railway that is set to create another 150,000 jobs. Development projects have already created electricity surplus. And
I don't have can you give us a rough idea? How many, or what's the level of 200,000 plus 150,000 job opportunities? Is it a big number, or?
Well, of course, it is a very big number, particularly after, you see after the COVID, when a lot of layoffs were made by private sector and many people went jobless. 250,000 or 350 to 500,000 jobs. 500,000 jobs for any country is a big thing.
Right.
And for Pakistan, that is the 5th largest populated country. It's still not that much, but again, under the circumstances, this is a really very big and it is set to create more jobs. It's just 10 years. In coming years, the second phase is on, and the third phase, there will be more job opportunities and more other projects. We have a major push in the energy sector, and the country that was suffering from load shedding and lack of electricity under the CPEC, most of the funding has gone to the energy sector. And now, second biggest we are expecting is the agriculture sector now. And agriculture, Pakistan has had to choose between industrialization and improving agriculture, which should be first from CPEC or BRI. I think currently there is a thought prevailing that we should, it will take 15 to 20 years or to industrialize the country, but it will take 1 year to bring revolution in agriculture. And agriculture, we have learned a lot from China. I have always been saying, if you have to be part of BRI, you have to be a sincere partner with intentions to learn from your senior partner. Only if you want to join it as a game spoiler, then you do not learn, and then if you do not implement the experiment you get, you cannot benefit. In COVID, Pakistan was very close in following the SOPs from China, and that is why Pakistan and China control rate remained the same, and both countries were in the top 5 countries to handle the COVID. India, for that instance, just a kilometer away from Pakistan, they did not follow any such SOPs, and they suffered not human loss, but also major financial losses during that time. So I think that if you closely follow your friends, your neighbors, your partners, then BRI, CPEC, whatever project is, will benefit you extraordinarily.
You said Pakistan can learn a lot from China. It's the same with China. It's a mutual, learning process, right? Obviously, like the Chinese always say, we can always learn something from someone with you. And Tom, for Mr. Makhdoom, obviously it's the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project. For you, which project of the BRI initiative impressed you most?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of projects, but I think China's focus on railroads was a key factor. Like, for example, he was talking about the African railroads. That was a major development, and China somehow has been very successful with developing its railroads compared to other countries. So also something to be aware of, and I think a lot of times forget, is when they're developing these projects, you're basically starting from the ground up. So a lot of these countries were mainly agricultural, but they did not even have the ability to deliver in bulk their products for export, because they basically did not have, the roads weren't that great, the bridges weren't that great, and the railroads were non-existent. So you're basically, what the BRI is starting from scratch with the railroads, and it's helping these people to transport their goods and deliveries to other cities and to other countries. And I think actually when I kind of think about it, for example, the railroads that are connecting China with Europe, and I've written some articles on it, and I've actually done some stories on it, and I actually think that's quite amazing, because you have long distances, and you're transporting the goods from China all the way to as far as Spain through the railroads. So basically, what I see as BRI as that sort of as a building things, and that's what the Chinese are good at. The Chinese are very good at building things. So by building it, and also that's what made China's economy so great. So I've also had to write a book about Shenzhen, so I'm a little bit familiar with your city. And one thing I've learned was it started from basically just a poor farming village. And then what they did was, because it was next to the coast, they were able to make all these factories, and then they were able to create this big port, and they had close access to Hong Kong. So the logistics that's happening through BRI is what, to me, is the real success story of the BRI.
Let me just continue your topic about the Shenzhen.
Okay, good.
Because I'm from the emerging new city with only more than 40 years history.
Sure.
Right,
And I'm
Silicon
also from
Valley.
a emerging new university,
Great.
just the 40 years anniversary of its birthday.
Right.
So we are we are starting doing some research on this BRI successful factors for the past 10 years. To my understanding, I think that the primary reasons are 3 points. The first one, that is, Chinese government has stick to the principle of the common prosperity and peaceful cooperation, as I mentioned a moment ago. And we have upheld the principle of mutual respect and real multilateralism. For example, you talk about the railway constructions. I would like to cite the example of the port city in Sri Lanka, Colombo Port City, which was also a flagship project under BRI. It was when President Xi Jinping visited Sri Lanka in 2014, he just laid the ground for this flag project. And after 80 years of construction, it has been very successful for the first phase. So I just went back just last week, and now it has entered the second phase of its implementation of business invitation, start commercial or business operation now, because according to the long-term plan of this Colombo port city, it will become one of the good example of modernization for the old city. Just the brand new city, a port city, is a CBD center, and it has started the coral reef education facilities, because in order to educate people to respect this ESG, ecology, protection and social responsibility and governance, the project office working together with Sri Lanka government to start this ESG in this project in order to get a good example. I also appreciate Mr. Babar's idea that we need a sincere partner to work together
Indeed.
for this BRI implementation, because if whatever China tries hard, but if there is any cooperation from the reception and or hosting countries, we may face some difficulties. For example, some unstable or political situation, or some just negative media coverage of these projects. So what I mean is that we should, based on this information, not only from China, but also from the local media and from the Western media. So let's work together for a scientific and objective and also rational idea about the BRI. It's not something what 1 billion describes. We also need to understand a balanced, so that you can have a scientific conclusion of BRI's achievements, or the so-called date trap, which we are going to talk later on.
Right, the cooperative spirit is what needed most in such a huge project, I should say. And people always refer to some infrastructure projects of the initiative as some major accomplishments, right? But I can share with you some stories of health cooperation. Indeed, Mr. Makhdoom, I've already mentioned the COVID cooperation. And when I was based in Myanmar, there was this health cooperation in eye surgeries, helping people, Chinese doctors and nurses helping people carrying out a cataract surgeries free of charge. And also with congenital cardiac surgeries. And in Myanmar, in the Laos, in Cambodia, such kind of projects are also underway. So it's not just limited to infrastructure. But since Professor Dai mentioned the project in Sri Lanka, we've seen basically since 2016, there are a lot of, I should say, accusations, right, of debt traps, of China creating such debt traps in those countries. So, Tom,
Sure.
What's your evaluation?
No,
of that?
I mean, these are very important issues to address, and this is the major challenge that BRI has. The Chinese are great builders, but the communication is not as strong as their building skills.
All right.
So what I'm getting at is that I think oftentimes, I've been in China since 2010, and a lot of times they'll have good ideas and wonderful ideas, but their ability to communicate and get others to cooperate on those ideas has been a challenge at times.
All right.
Okay, so what's going on is how to deal with this situation. Well, normally, let's say, for example, when I'm dealing with teams or I'm trying to encourage teams to work together, I always tell people, do what you're strong at, okay? Nobody is Superman. Nobody is perfect. Nobody can do everything. So what I'm getting at, focus on what you're strong at. What is China strong at? Infrastructure. Focus on it. Now, obviously, if people are not being cooperative, there is a major issue because you have a lot of financing, and if it gets canceled, you're going to lose a lot of money. So how do you handle it? Perhaps maybe work with some of your cooperative partners who are better at handling these type of situations. Maybe it's not China. Maybe it's somebody else. So you develop third-party platforms to create this type of better type of cooperation. The reason they're so good at building is because they can make a schedule, they make it happen, they hit the deadlines, fantastic, let's move on. However, in politics is not the same as infrastructure building. And this is what China needs to learn. And so they're going to have to work with other partners and to get advice. I think if they develop closer relations with Europe, this could be a way from them to improve their cooperation skills. Because if anything, at least the Europeans are good at diplomacy.
Mr. Makhdoom, what's behind this narratives of debt traps?
Well, there are many interesting things about it because Sri Lanka and Pakistan are most of the time criticized for lending into China's debt trap. Last year, I think I published a report. In fact, I wrote a report for a Western media organization. And while digging out the stats for that report, we discovered that Pakistan's loans from China are overall just 23% of the global loans that we are getting. And the Chinese markup is the lowest on those loans. And secondly, there is another confusion. One is commercial loan and one is non-commercial loans. Non-commercial loans are mostly used for development projects. Commercial loans go through banks like Bank of China or Agriculture Bank of China, POC, whatever. There is always international standard of markup on the commercial loans. So that is for whole world it is the same. Similar theories were made for Sri Lanka, that Sri Lanka has been economically taken over or taken into that trap by China. So and most of the criticism was coming from Indian media and Western media. So I had the opportunity to interview a former senior general of Sri Lanka who was engaged at Hambantota port and these things. I asked him, what is the story why Chinese companies are getting most of the...
What are their answers?
Yeah, and he said, that first of all, you can examine yourself how much stakes Chinese companies have. Second thing, he told me that we did an experiment. At that time, he said that it was 4 years ago, we created 2 projects of same volume, same nature. Like I think it was some 10-story building. We gave one piece of land for that project to an Indian company and one to a Chinese company. And after 1 year, when we inspected, Chinese company had built the 7th floor while Indian was still at the 1st floor and 2 basements, I think. So he said this is the speed, the work technology, the infrastructure development technology that Chinese are having. That is inspiring people to give projects to them. It's not that they are making some trap. If any other country can become with the better speed than the Chinese companies, construction work particularly they are doing, we will give it to them. So this is the basic story behind why Indian companies were criticizing because they wanted most of the project at Hambantota and other parts of Sri Lanka. They could not get because of being slow in speed. Maybe quality they are having equal quality, but quality with speed is 1 + 1. So debt trap stories are just baseless propagation, and all loans are very, very although China needs to make more clarity about these, and it's up to the governments who are receiving these loans, who are seeking these loans, they should also make it more transparent and should let their people, their media know about the details, but all the details sometimes cannot be disclosed. But it does not mean that there is something fishy if it cannot be disclosed.
Right, Professor Dai, what's your take? Is it because we lack some, professional communication, professionals, I should say, who are good at communicating our ideas to BRI partner countries, or is it because of, or comes out of some enviousness?
Okay, I agree with what you said, that China is well experienced in doing this physical infrastructure. But at the same time, we lack some experience in doing this soft power building. But that's not the full story of the whole picture. I think that the so-called date trap or negative impacts of BRI is what the Western media covered. Because I would like to stress the importance of the basic professional principle of journalism or medium. They should be fair and objective, and to tell the truth, not the fake news. For example, just like Baba said, that the so-called debt trap in Pakistan, Chinese loans to Pakistan is only accounting 23% of its total debts. And in the case of Sri Lanka, Chinese debt only accounts less than 10% of its global. So I would like to say the Western media usually overemphasized the negative side of BRI, but they fully ignored the achievements and the contributions that Chinese BRI did to the coasting countries. So I think that the reason why we stress the importance of the international communication or area or targeted communication now, and even for the enterprise communication, what you did should be broadcasted based on this fair principle of being a journalist, or objective media.
Yeah, Tom's got something to
Yeah,
say.
Tom got.
Now,
you
just
say.
remember, what I have to do a lot of times as a geopolitical analyst is I have to understand both sides. Because in order to understand both sides, what I'm expected to do is I'm expected to make a prediction. So when I make a forecast, I have to understand how, it's sort of like when you're, see, I come from America, so we have a sports culture in America. We love teams. I'm from Dallas. So anybody from Houston and their teams, they're terrible people. Not because they're bad people, but because their teams are not my team. So I think a lot of times the Chinese, what they really struggle to understand is the basic concepts of team sports culture. So it's not personal when it looks personal. And I used to make this joke in politics, even in America, when I was dealing with politicians and like, oh, those attacks you did against me, they were so hard hitting. I'm like, it's not personal. I'm like, what are you talking about? You just said all these terrible things about me, Tom. I said, it's still not personal. You're a member of the other team. It's that case. I have to support my team. So the media is basically not real. I mean, this idea that the media...
They claim they're objective.
Yeah, the media is not objective. Let's be honest. No media is objective, and if they are, they're not being honest, okay? They're a member of whoever team they are, and they're the spokespeople for that team. That's basically what it is, and I just want the Chinese to understand that this is really not personal. It's just a case that the Americans want to be number one, and they know China's number two, and they're just doing what they can to stay number one.
Maybe it's not a personal idea. It's a politician's attitudes towards a country.
Well, yeah, I understand, but what I'm getting at is that being overly sensitive to the criticism only looks for our side, for what I grew up in. When you're sensitive to criticism, that shows weakness.
But
Yeah.
according to Chinese principle, that facts tell the truth.
Well,
actions speak louder.
And let the Chinese media tell the story. Let the Chinese media tell the story, and if the people believe it, they'll believe it. Let the Chinese media tell the China story.
I think Chinese media has really picked up for the last few years, and they have become more vibrant.
Yeah.
Which they were 20 years back. I came to this building.
Yeah.
It was CRI Urdu. I signed, and at that time, these things, this technology, that was just a dream. And now the way Chinese media organizations, they have best quality equipment. They have best quality journalists, broadcasters, but still they lack somewhere to push their narrative more effectively around the world. I think as the quality of CGTN programs are no less than CNN or BBC, but still their voice is not that louder that they have, and they need to. I saw a change when President Xi Jinping took over as president. Media started becoming more vibrant and more true, accurate, bold, whatever we call it in our organization. But there is definitely a lot of room for
Indeed.
make more effective
Thanks.
with quality journalists, with quality equipment, with a lot of over a billion audience. They now should make a major march in taking their narrative to the world. And to Tom, Tom was saying that he's always outsider. I want to clarify that at the same time he's an American, and Americans are never an outsider in any country.
Indeed.
So actually, I agree with your suggestion that we need to do more in the global cooperation in communication.
Sure.
Just have this localization of international communication. This is what I'm going to do. My team is going to do in Sri Lanka.
Right.
Yeah, so we're working towards this localization of communication. So let's the local people tell the story, as well as the Chinese people telling the story.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the localization is so important. If you're going to do a major infrastructure project, the locals need to support it, okay? And it really requires that communication that you're talking about. And so I like that idea.
Sure. Thanks for the tips, gentlemen. Yes, I understand we got a lot to improve in this respect. Then what other challenges do we have here, Mr. Makhdoom?
Yes, there are also many other challenges that BRI has been facing in the last 10 years and is likely to continue face in coming few years as well. And one of them is terrorism, security issues. We see that BRI has the 6 economic corridor, and the CPEC is the most vibrant one, but still, because of security concerns, because a lot of conspiracies from outside Pakistan and those who are against Pakistan-China friendship for decades from the beginning, not only after BR, they are constantly creating security challenges, arming and financing terrorism into Pakistan using one country's soil or the other countries. Security is one of the area where BRI countries need to develop a common mechanism, a joint counter-terror strategy. Though we have RATS and SCO, regional anti-terrorism structure, but I think for BRI we also need to have a closer cooperation, and we should make some regional bodies to counter these challenges. And the other, of course, is education. We need to spread the educational networks at the grassroots level, so more people and they get educated in countries like Pakistan and these, then they will be more able to contribute to the cause of BRI and to get benefit from. If they are less educated, they will just continue to what they are told to follow.
So education and Tom?
Foreign exchange, changing, being able to switch the money from country to country. China has very strict foreign controls on its currency, and a lot of people are telling me that I talk to are saying that that is a major concern they have of doing business in China, as well as when you're developing these projects that are cross-border, is the foreign currency controls are very restrictive, and if there's some way for China to open that up, I think that would be much better for all sides.
Financial reforms. And Professor Dai?
If we understand the BRI for its successful factors, I would like to summarize 3 points. First one is the capital resources. Second is the technology advancement. And the third one is management experience. But based on these 3 successful factors, we need something more to work toward the next 10 years of BRI, which is something like global communication. And also, Babar, you mentioned this education. Of course, in order to improve these qualities of BRI projects, we Chinese government now is attaching great importance to the ESG concept, which is environment, social responsibility, and governance. Of course, China is well experienced in providing this concept of ESG. As Chinese president proposed 4 initiatives. The first one is BRI in 2013, September and October, during his visit to Kazakhstan and Indonesia. And the second one is the growth initiative, global development initiative. And the third one is global security initiative. And the latest one is global civilization initiative. These 3 initiatives, of course, the first one is the overall agenda for the human being. We try to build a shared common community of shared future for mankind. And then the other 3 is part of the BRI, I think, because in order to protect this planet, we should work more for under the concept of ESG. I think that the greatest concern in different countries are different. Maybe some countries, they don't have a stable political situation, and another country, maybe they don't have a stable economic situation. For example, in Sri Lanka or some other African countries. But in some other developed countries, they have stable political situation and economic how to educate the common people to understand the Western media reasonably and rationally.
I'd like to address the ESG issue. I know it's a wonderful thing, but unfortunately, ESG in Europe is different than ESG in Africa. So what I'm trying to get at is the reason Europe and the United States can have high standards for ESG is because they are already developed. Whereas if you go to Africa and you tell them, oh, you can't have coal, but you have to do a windmills or something, it's possible that the coal will be more reliable energy source in Africa, but then the ESG people will say, oh, it's polluting, we can't have it. So what I'm getting at is the concerns I have with ESG is that a lot of countries that are in the developing stage cannot have the same quality of ESG that you'd see in the US and Europe, and that is okay.
Yes.
That is perfectly okay. So I'm a little bit reluctant to too much emphasize ESG. Instead, say just focus more on what you say, development. I like that word. But ESG, and maybe it's because I'm a Republican or whatever, but I just find it as a little bit scary. But I like the word development.
Maybe it's just find the balance point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
Go ahead. He can respond to what I said.
Yeah, I agree with your suggestion is that the ESG means differently in different countries based on their economic development phases. So Chinese technology and Chinese management can be very suitable for developing countries. Maybe it's not suitable for the developed countries.
Sure.
So maybe
But
American,
it has to clarify. It has to show the
American
difference.
led Western countries proposed the 3 or B3W.
Build back better.
Build
Yeah.
back a better
World.
But
It will not happen.
It will not happen. Definitely.
Because the ESG standards are so high, it's impossible to implement those ESG
so
standards.
that is not what
Yeah.
the developing countries can achieve. Yeah.
Let's ask our guest from Pakistan. Is it possible to achieve it?
Everything is possible to achieve, as I said, if you have to make efforts with sincerity.
Right.
You need basic sincerity. And in all these issues, I have always been saying the West's approach towards China or this Asia at the moment in China, it can come positive if they realize one thing, that socialist democracy is equally effective and similar sort of the Westminster democracy, and every society needs their own democracy style. You cannot impose your version of democracy on other democracies. They need to know that yes, socialist democracy is also a democracy, and that is why China has made so much development that the people of China, they are very much satisfied with the governance system they are having, and oppressed or suppressed or depressed nation cannot make these achievements that China has made in last couple of decades particularly. So once this realization comes, a lot of negative things will be driven away, that we don't have to impose our version of democracy.
Right, and let's move on to the future or the outlook of this initiative. Like you just mentioned, this initiative or the projects involved in those in the initiative are expected to move towards a greener and more sustainable development direction. So, and we see in the latest white paper issued days ago, this is also a strategic direction for the whole thing. And Wu Peng, and I quote, he is the director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs African Department. He said the BRI is moving towards small but beautiful projects. So I'd like to, what's your interpretation of such a definition, small and beautiful?
I think what he meant to say was the smart projects. They are moving to the short, sweet and smart projects. And smart is a concept that I have already been discussing with our Chinese friends in the ministries, that smart media centers should also come into power. We had our friends, American, they have been running the American centers all over the world and with a lot of success. Today, the CNN or BBC or CNN or New York Times are having that much sound around the world. It's because it took years for US government to establish their narratives through American centers, and media came later. And today, with this technology, with everything, smart media centers should also come up. And in this BRI smart projects, we have long-term, long duration project, we have short duration project, we have medium duration project. So immediate work on the shortest duration projects is to be called smart projects. So people should get the idea of the benefits or development out of the BRI projects in a shortest possible time to get encouraged for the long duration projects to brace for them. And in my opinion, at the same time now BRI has 10 years on its credit. It's time for BRI to engage member states in closer community contacts. We should have more exchange in the sports of the member countries. We can go to BRI Olympics sort of thing, and we can have cultural exchanges. We can make joint productions in entertainment program, in informative programs. We can have joint health mechanisms for these member states. So to engage more segments of society, we should focus on making more platforms of the BRI centers so countries can chip in. We can divide them into different regions, but regions can be comprising 10 countries or 15 countries. Then they can have interregional interactions at different sectors.
But if it's a short-term project, would China be accused of being short-sighted or ignoring long-term,
Sure.
What's the word, benefits by the outsiders?
Why put money into a project and not expect benefits in return? So, I think this idea, and I've been trying to alert China, don't make it sound like a charity project, because then it's going to be easy for others to attack once the debt happens, and then there's business problems. Just throw that out the window. Don't even say it's a charity project, okay? So, the thing is to do these projects, and you're going to put money into something, you're going to expect some type of return. It really is that simple. So these future projects that they're developing, when they're smart, they're going to have a return on investment. If they're failures, they're not going to be completed, or the local communities will push it out. So China also needs cooperation with the local communities, because obviously if they don't support it, the project's not going to succeed.
No, I think I have not been able to explain the concept of small duration project. It's not that you should make some small. Those projects who have actual estimated time that is shortest than the other projects. Like if you have a solar energy park, a small solar energy park, it is on your project, and you have a big, few acres, few squares solar energy setup. So first complete that smaller one, so that people, locals should get encouraged. Then I'm not asking that do not go for big projects, but I'm saying if there are smaller projects of same nature, then first execute those smaller projects. It will also give you an idea of their success at the large scale level or failure at the large scale. You can save money if it is a failure, and you can get encouraged if it's a hit. So for a small duration project, same project with a smaller duration of establishing, not for smaller duration.
Professor Dai?
Yes. To my understanding, I think whether they are big or amazing projects or small or beautiful projects, these two ideas are not contradictory to each other. Actually, they are complementary, supplementary to each other.
Right.
Because even if it is a big project, it is comprised of a series of smaller projects. What I mean is that the basic principle of implementing this big or small project is your courage and your contribution, or your professional skills and your sincere attitudes towards the hosting countries. Whether you treat the countries, big or small, fairly enough, or whether you are going to place any additional or political conditions in that. For example, the MCC, American initiated, now I still talk about the MCC. For MCC, first it was initiated in African continent, but most of the African continent rejected it. Now you moved to Sri Lanka and to Nepal. And after a serious discussion about its consequences of MCC in Sri Lanka government definitely refused it, saying that because there is a clause, that there is an article in the MCC agreement, that is Article 20. The US Constitution or law is above these hosting countries. And when it turns to Nepal, so Nepal, they have different parties. Finally, they agreed on that, but with 9 points of statement saying that unless US government elaborate this clause, then the Nepalese government can implement this MCC. So what I mean, whether it is big or small, I think we should do it professionally and objectively and do as a business do. Sometimes we think too much politics in the purely BRI projects is very bad for the implementation of BRI.
But some people are concerned that that may mean the Chinese government may reduce significantly its investments in those countries. Mr. Makhdoom, do you share that kind of concerns?
I think the BRI is something that has no such project has got with that much rumors and propagations against it in last, I think, at least I can say in last 50 years. So these concerns, and based on the rumors and sometimes based on the negative propagation and sometimes based on the positive propagation, will continue to come. But we have to say one thing, that if you really want to gauge the concept of BRI, you should take a careful study of the statistics so far and the statistics said to come in future, and then you can gauge what is the percentage of the stats set for the first 10 years, how much has been achieved. So you can imagine that how in next 10 years how much percentage would be created. And similarly propagations, if you go, then you can also see what was the level of anti-CPEC propaganda through media and intelligence agencies 10 years back, and where it is today and where it can be in the coming 10 years. People are getting more aware by the media, social media, that China has jumped into. And some similar things are, I can see young Chinese netizens, they are doing it, and now I think journalists have also joined, and wonderful social media platforms. I can see them debating with their opponents from West or from India, from anywhere, and in coming years, this war, which we call in Pakistan the 5th generation war, it will also be won in favor of BRI.
That's some change that we are experiencing right now with BRI projects being carried out. Then what other changes do you expect in the years to come, Professor Dai?
Yeah, for the next 10 years or next 20 years of BRI programmatic cooperation with the partners, I think this greener or more sustainable and goals are more emphasized by the partners, not only by China, but also by the partners in the world. Well, so far as I know, in some South Asia countries, for example, in Sri Lanka or in Nepal or even in Pakistan, because the green and sustainable concepts are what the BRI stressed most from the very beginning of joint consultation, joint construction and joint benefits to the more sustainable and green Silk Road and green BRI and healthy BRI, and now we have the sustainable BRI. I think that direction is firmly will be held by Chinese government, and it's contributors or constructors.
Do you expect more private companies may taking part in this initiative? You know,
For sure.
we've been facing some doubts over large state-owned enterprises' investments in those countries.
Yes. In the case of Shenzhen, you know, Shenzhen is a city with dominating private-owned companies, and they are very actively trying hard to engage some BRI projects abroad. Because as the Wu Peng said, the small and beautiful projects maybe is one of the top priorities areas, especially for the smart city management and the smart port cities, because Shenzhen is well experienced in port construction, circle, and Qianhai. So, and Shenzhen is the first Chinese special economic zone,
Yes.
which has set a good example for the global, for the international community. That is called the Chinese experience and global governance.
Right.
Yeah.
Tom?
Well, actually, in regards to the financial enterprises, it's already assumed that many Chinese companies are involved, but we need to get more global corporations involved. So for example, I'm from Texas, so we're an oil and gas state. Our biggest company is Exxon. How did Exxon succeed? Not by itself, by its private partnerships with many other private companies when they did overseas development and exploration of oil and gas in other countries. So what I'm getting at is the BRI, in order for it to succeed, needs the support of local companies to get more involved.
Do you see any adjustment taking place with the Chinese side?
People are telling me from the Chinese side that they're trying to work on that and that they're trying to make some progress on it. And I think that it's a work in progress, but I do see that this is the direction they're taking.
Tom, I fully agree with your idea. China is ready to cooperate with U.S. or international companies, but I'm not sure whether American companies or American government are ready to cooperate with China.
That's a good
When
question.
you don't give us opportunities.
Well, that's why I use the Exxon example. I'm not using the Washington example. I'm
It's
using
your-
the Exxon
it's
example,
your-
not Washington. So,
Yeah.
and also I'm not defending, like for example, what you described on the MCC. I totally, if I was in Washington, I wouldn't have pushed for something for that. That's too extreme. So obviously, just because I'm American doesn't mean I support these ideas. What I'm trying to get across is I'm more of a geopolitical analyst where I'm trying to understand the balance.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, I
So
understand.
it requires me to understand both sides.
So, Mr. Makhdoom, what's your, what do you expect to come up when, in terms of further changes to this world?
I expect more weather balloons to be identified by the American agencies, and more chips in Huawei.
You're saying more containment.
Yeah. I would say that's true. Yeah.
And otherwise everything would be fine.
Yes.
If we can counter these these weather balloon and chip conspiracies, then we can make good progress and development on these projects.
Then how do you expect this initiative to further reshape this world? We've seen already the landscape of global geopolitics have already changed over the past 10 years. So looking ahead.
Of course, it is going to reshape. Once it will reshape the economies, it will automatically be reshaping overall infrastructure development is taking place and economic development is taking place. And with the stability that the professor was saying, that political instabilities, economic instabilities, these are all because of the backwardness and the low level of economies. Once I haven't seen country with good, wonderful economic stability, but political instability. The economic stability brings all stabilities, and this BRI is set to bring economic stabilities, and political stabilities will automatically come in.
Tom?
Well, I mean, the future of BRI, I think sometimes China puts too much emphasis on the USA. Just let it go.
Right.
Focus on,
Can we?
well, I've been in this for a long time, and it's a never-ending battle. But what the thing is it's what I try to say is focus on your strengths, focus on what you have some control over. You have no control over the U.S. The U.S. wants to control China. You're not going to let that happen either. So just try to focus on the BRI as itself, and the countries that are involved, make them more connected, make them more involved, and so this sort of BRI block that you're sort of mentioning, I think it's going to move in that direction.
Yes. I think this human principle is very simple. Work for the human being, contribute to the human being. Don't work for selfish interests of. We should uphold the principle of the shared future for the mankind. That is my understanding of. Let's have a real or truthful multilateralism. We don't stay alone in this planet. We should work together for the benefits of the human beings, not for one individual country or one individual tribe or ethnic groups.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So Mr. Makhdoom just said, actually, call me naive. You just described some scene where it's hard for the U.S. to cooperate, maybe more suppression on China, I doubt. But I would like to, hope for such a day when the U.S., when China can collaborate with the U.S. and its allies in, carrying out BRI development projects together in those countries. But
Yeah.
I think there are many areas apart from BRI where the U.S. and its allies can cooperate with China, like we have just discussed.
yeah,
The greener world projects, the environment projects. But the thing is this, that the only problem for China is that the Chinese leaders practically do what they say. And American or other Western governments, mostly they make big claims, they bring out initiatives, but they do not go to materialize. We can see many projects of international level that need Western leaders' immediate implementation, what they make at Copenhagen summit or at the Paris Club summit. They make big claims, but they do not. But the big problem for China is that they start initiating those projects, and that is not liked by many political rivals in the West.
but let's hope, such a scenario can occur someday in the future, when this common prosperity of humanity can be truly realized.
Sure. I think the day will come in the near future.
I'm not so optimistic. I have to be realistic. Basically, what we're having is the rivalry between the U.S. and China is obviously heating up. It's going to continue to get worse. So it's sort of like when you play chess. You're playing and your opponent, they make a move, you have to make a counter move. And this is basically what's going on. We'd love to have a so-called world where there's global peace and everyone is happy, but it's non-existent. We just have to accept that and just find a way to adapt to this ongoing situation.
Obviously, it's a long way to go.
Okay, Tom, may I make a suggestion to your politicians, your leaders?
Okay.
Tell them to learn more Chinese traditional culture and philosophy.
Sure.
The key points of Chinese philosophy is peace and cooperation, openness and inclusiveness, not exclusive. and mutual learning and mutual benefits.
But it's about their
That
willingness
is
to do so.
But will they
BRI
listen?
spirit.
I don't
That
know.
is,
I don't know.
Tell
if they'll
them to
li-
study Chinese 3,000 years of Chinese history.
I don't know if they'll listen right now.
I'll try.
Obviously, it's a long way to
Yeah.
go and quite a difficult journey in the years to come. And with that, we come to the end of today's chat. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.